Hey, it's Anthony Whitaker here, and welcome to today's episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. And whether this is your first time or perhaps you're a regular listener, either way, thank you for tuning in today. And thanks for all the reviews for the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't yet left us a review, then I would be really grateful if you did over on the Apple Podcast app. The ratings and reviews are extremely helpful and they're greatly appreciated. They do matter in the rankings of the show and they help other people to find the podcast. And I also love to hear what's been helpful to you. So with that said, on with today's show. Sometimes it's easier to see what's wrong with a business when you are the client, as opposed to being a business owner or a team member working within the business. I heard an expression recently which sort of sums it up. It was, you can't read the label if you're on the inside of the jar, which is actually a pretty good metaphor to describe the situation. One of the good things about being a small business owner is that you don't have to repeat the same mistakes that everyone else who has come before you has already made. Building a successful business by learning from other people's mistakes is not only less expensive, but it's also less painful and it's quicker in the process. So in today's short episode, I'm going to tell you about a local business and their rise and subsequent fall, and we'll wrap it up with a list of what the key lessons are. So, what happened? Well, one of my daughters tried a manicure salon that was local to where she lives. She liked the service and she liked the manicure, so she told her sister and her mother about it, and one by one, they also visited and then became regular clients. All three of them liked it because it was convenient. The staff were always fully booked and they were professional, they were polite, they were fast, and they did a good job. And you always got a value-added hand massage and moisturizer. And it was only £25, which is just under US $35. And whenever one of them came home after having had a manicure, I would hear them talking and laughing about someone called Mary, who was the woman who ran the salon. Now, by all accounts, Mary was a pretty tough boss and she had uncompromising standards, but she managed the workflow and the productivity of her team and the business, and she didn't miss anything that was going on. But then, a few months later, without any warning, Mary was suddenly no longer there. My wife and daughters still went to the same place, but they commented that without Mary it was no longer as good. And after a few visits, they said that every time they went, there were different staff. The salon wasn't as busy, it wasn't as professional, and the price had gone up, first to £28 and then the next time to £35. And there were no more frills. The hand massage and the moisturizer was hit and miss if it was offered at all. And the staff started becoming rude and talking over the top of the clients, and nothing was as clean as it used to be. There was no hello or goodbye, and the standard of manicure was becoming mediocre at best, and they didn't always have the colour of nail varnish that the girls and their mum wanted. As a result, they would arrive home feeling more than a bit annoyed. And so, inevitably, after a couple more visits, they stopped going and went somewhere less convenient. Now they pay £42, which is about 57 US dollars, which is considerably more than what they were paying, but they're happy because they want having a manicure to feel like an emotional treat and not just a practical necessity. Now, with the new place they go to now, there is no Mary, but the standards are high. The salon is spotlessly clean, the service is on point, you're greeted with a smile every time you arrive, and they all work as a team. And the manageress is all over everything, albeit with a very light touch. So now they go somewhere that is less convenient and more expensive, but they're happy because they get what they want and they have a great experience. Now, that is a true story. So let's just look at what happened. First of all, from the financial perspective. My oldest daughter was the first to try the salon and she raved about it. So then her sister and mother went too. Collectively, between the three of them, they were spending about £80, which is about US $108. And they did that on average every 3 weeks, which means that they would go about 17 times a year. So 17 visits multiplied by £80, which they were more than happy to pay, equals £1,360, which is over US $1,800 a year. Now, depending on their lifetime value, they might have gone for 2, 3, maybe 5 years, who knows? And they might have referred some friends as well. So potentially it could have turned into a significant sum of money. But instead, they left in less than a year. And now, every time I walk past the salon, it's never busy. And so obviously, a lot of other regular clients left too. So that business has lost tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars. So whether they survive or not remains to be seen. So now let's think about what happened from a management perspective. I have no idea why Mary left, but she certainly was the glue that held it all together. Mary may have been a tough boss, but she ran the place properly. It was efficient, it was clean, it was professional, all the staff were polite, and they did a great job, and everyone was always busy. I often say that people need managing and leading in order to become the best possible version of themselves. Mary made her team the best possible version of themselves. But when Mary left, there was immediately a void, a total lack of leadership. The team started to let their standards slip. Some of them left, and new team members were just dropped in at the deep end and left to their own devices. Mary was the system. She created the culture and she set the standards. She established the client relationships and created the brand experience. It was a win for everyone, whether you were the client, the team members that worked there, and I assume it was also a win for whoever the owner was. Mary wasn't afraid to be the manager. The team were well trained and standards were consistently high because of Mary. So now let's look at what happened from a marketing perspective. I suspect that the business was successful based on word of mouth because there was no big Instagram presence or marketing campaign that I was aware of. The clientele, which were primarily young women, just organically grew as they told their family, their friends and colleagues, and that's how it grew into what appeared to be a little gold mine. And then, just as quickly as it grew, it then imploded the same way, by the same clients talking to each other about how it wasn't as professional anymore. There were no frills, the manicure wasn't as good, the salon wasn't as clean, the prices had gone up and the service had gone down. And as a result, one by one, a big percentage of the clients have left. I sometimes think about how some businesses, whether they're in the beauty sector or not, revolve around a person. And when that person leaves, the business literally implodes without them. It's obviously not what's meant to happen. So I pulled together 10 lessons from this little story that are relevant to every salon owner, whether you're a hairdressing salon, a barber, a spa, a beauty therapist, an esthetician, or whatever. So what are the lessons? Well, the first one is do not be afraid to be the leader. People need managing and they'll respect you for it. The second lesson is people, meaning your clients and your team, like being part of a successful, well-managed business. The third lesson is train your team to deliver to the brand standards you expect and then hold them accountable for the results. Fourth, it's you don't have to be a tyrant, but set a standard of excellence and demand it from those on your team. And if they're not a fit, then let them go. The fifth lesson is clients notice when things start to slip. They won't necessarily complain, they'll just vote with their feet and you'll never see them again. And at number 6, the easiest way to grow a business is to keep the clients you already have and to make your existing clients a source of referrals and your number one marketing machine. The 7th lesson is word of mouth is still the strongest way to build a business, And it's also the fastest way to destroy the reputation of a business. At number 8, if you're a business owner, employ great people, but make what they do a system, so that even when staff leave, and they will, the systems still remain, and so the job can be replicated by others. The 9th lesson is that from a marketing perspective, clients love the little unexpected value-added touches, even something as simple as a complimentary hand massage or moisturizer. And finally, the 10th lesson, and this is really important. Clients do not mind paying more if the standards are consistently high and the client experience is there. So I'm sure there are some things that I've missed out that you could add to that list, but looking at businesses that work well and looking at businesses that fail and understanding why they fail can be a great education in itself. So with that said, we need to start winding this short episode up. But before we do that, we do have multiple free resources on our website, from our weekly podcasts, such as the one you're listening to at the moment, to the 2-minute Salon Manager videos, as well as our paid-for resources, whether it's our books or our one-to-one coaching or our online courses. Now, relative to today's podcast, there are a couple of resources that I want to point you towards. The first is my best-selling books, the Grow series. So there's Grow 1, Super Stylist, which is all about getting those on your team to understand that ultimately they're responsible for their level of productivity and therefore for how much they earn. Grow 2 Management is particularly relevant to today's episode, and that's very much about you as a business owner. And Grow 3 Team is also relevant to today's episode. And Grow 4 Marketing is the final in the Grow book series. Now you can find them at growmysalonbusiness.com/books. So until next week, I'm Anthony Whitaker, and this is the Grow My Salon Business podcast. Have a great week. Bye for now.